Norwegian energy giant Equinor is considering terminating its 810 megawatt Empire Wind farm off Long Island due to the Trump administration putting a halt to the construction project. I can't blame them, because all this is going to do is, with the tax credits going away, is going to raise New Yorkers' electricity. That's all it is going to do.
Yeah, and what this article is really talking about is the fact that you've got one side of the equation where Equinor is saying, hey man, these were approved. We've spent, you read the article here, they've invested over $2.5 billion and costing them hard cash $50 million a week.
Right.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome into the Wednesday, May 14th, 2025 edition of the Daily Energy Newsbeat. Stand up. Here are today's top headlines. First up, Ukraine's MHP delivers first bio-LNG supplies to EU. I promise you I read that headline correctly. Next up, Equinor could axe wind project off New York within days. Shocker there. Save the whales. Next up, Sempra ECA LNG export project starts pre-commissioning activities. Finally, in the news segment, Russia readies billions for domestic fleet buildout. Stu will then toss it over to me. I will quickly cover what happened in the oil and gas markets today. Oil ripped this morning, Stu, so prices up all around the board, including stock market. Then we will also quickly touch on Halliburton and Schlumberger. We did see some earnings drop, and we will cover what that means. We will get to all that and a bag of chips, guys. As always, I am Michael Tanner, joined by Stuart Turley in the flesh. So now when he doesn't like something I say, he can just give me a quick smack on the head. But super excited you're in town, Stu. We've got a great event that we're helping co-host tonight, so it should be great. But without further ado, where do you want to begin?
Hey, let's start with our buddies there in Ukraine. Ukraine MHP delivers first bio-LNG supplies to the EU. Michael, I didn't realize bio-LNG was a thing.
Yeah, when you dropped this story, I was like, is that a joke? Is that a real thing?
And so I went and I looked up all of the bio and who are main players for bio-LNG, and I'm now a fan of bio-LNG.
Of course you are.
The key companies involved in bio-LNG exporting are Gasum out of Finland. Go figure that out.
Okay.
You've got HP out of Ukraine, and then you've got Neste out of Finland, Shell Global, Total Energies, our buddies there, Titan LNG. And so this is a much bigger thing in Sweden, Finland. Yep. And I like it because it takes any kind of biomass and they can turn it into LNG export. I like this entire process. But the Ukraine food and architect firm MHP said it delivered the first shipment of Ukrainian-made bio-LNG to a European Union partner, but they didn't name the partner. Is it because they're embarrassed that they're taking poo or LNG that's been turned from poo? I'm not sure.
Yeah. And so this is just the part I find funny. They claim the product is ISCC EU certified and fully compliant with RED 2/3 sustainability frameworks. That is a word salad that definitely came out of
that Kamala Harris would be proud of.
She would be very proud of. I mean, hey, if this works, I'm all for it.
I think so. And it takes the agriculture and gives them another money stream.
Absolutely.
I'm all in. I think this is absolutely phenomenal.
All right, let's move to Save the Whales.
Save the whales. Equinor could axe the wind project in New York within days. And I couldn't be happier, quite honestly. But I went and looked up how much Equinor was actually paid. And it's kind of interesting that they've already been paid a bunch of money from investors and everything else. And I could not track it down, so I did not put it into the story. But the Norwegian energy giant Equinor is considering terminating its 810 megawatt Empire Wind farm off Long Island due to the Trump administration putting a halt to the construction project. I can't blame them, because all this is going to do is, with the tax credits going away, is going to raise New Yorkers' electricity. That's all it is going to do.
Yeah, and what this article is really talking about is the fact that you've got one side of the equation where Equinor is saying, hey man, these were approved. We've spent, I mean, you read the article here, they've invested over $2.5 billion and costing them hard cash $50 million a week to keep, what is it, 11 vessels on standby. So I see where Equinor's like, I mean, come on, guys. Like, I get that you may not like offshore wind, but this has been approved. We've spent a lot of money. What's going on here? On the other side of the equation, you've got Doug Burgum, Secretary of the Interior, basically saying that, hey, this project was rushed through and it didn't go through the approval process. Now, okay, there is something to be said about legislation through regulation. When it favors our side, maybe we overlook it a little bit.
Well, I'm more of a black and white kind of guy. I like what the rules are. If they're good rules, follow the rules.
Good rules or just the rules in general?
The rules in general sometimes are baked by the left, and they're not good rules.
So we don't follow rules we don't like?
No, you have to follow the letter of the law. Now, go ahead and try to pull this crap on me. You're within straight. You've had a few podcasts where I've had to drop an F-bomb and it snuck through production. You're not going to get past that today, dude. So, no, honestly, Doug Burgum is exactly right. This was rushed through, and I was trying to, as I said earlier, I was trying to track the money down because some of the money I thought had come from USAID and some of the NGOs, and I did not have the proof, so I did not include it. So that's why I was getting ready for this discussion. So
no, absolutely. And I mean, I think we can all agree that offshore wind is a terrible, terrible way of renewable energy. There is a place for solar. There may be a place for onshore wind, but offshore wind has to rank at the lowest. I'm putting it below bio-LNG.
But bio-LNG turns waste into, I'm all in.
I know. But yes, I mean, the flip-flop doesn't help. In this case, I'm in favor of the flip-flop because I think we can both agree offshore wind sucks. I do think that we got to do something with the permitting process, though. And when it favors one side, yay. When it doesn't favor another side, that's when...
I want to know, and I want to talk about this all the time, and that is there's 79,000 wind farms in the United States, windmills, turbines that are going to need land reclamation. Who's going to pay for land reclamation? That's a big question.
The taxpayer.
The landowner.
Yeah, or the taxpayer. But no, that's great. Let's move on to Sempra.
Sempra, I love this one. Let's go with this one. And Sempra's ECA LNG export projects pre-commissioning activities. Michael, this is exciting for the oil and gas producers in the Permian because this is actually out of the Mexico Sempra facility that they're firing up. And you know what this means? This means that they're going to be exporting the takeaway from the Permian Basin that used to be flared waste gas is now going to be put on a ship and sold to Asia. This is exciting.
No, it really is. And when it's not that we're against renewables, it's we're against uneconomic forms of energy generation, whether it's renewable or not. Who really cares? And renewable is now, it's almost, renewable has become the new woke. It's like, I don't even know what it stands for anymore.
We're on LNG.
Yes, I know. But what I'm saying is when we're able to you could argue what Sempra's doing here is a renewable form of energy because they're taking this waste LNG and now they're shipping it back to China.
Okay. Either that or I thought you were thinking somebody in the Permian was pooping and we were like, whoa, you missed me on that one. No, this is flared type gas coming out of the Permian.
Absolutely.
Which is absolutely turning waste into energy. I like the way you think there. And instead of thinking of turning Permian poo into waste, this is actually flared gas.
Flared gas is waste energy.
Yes. And we're not wasting it anymore. We're going to use it.
Yep.
Anyway, I thought this was absolutely fantastic. This podcast is going to go down in history as you and I trying to do who was the baseball skit.
Oh, who's on first?
Yeah, who's on first. We're going to be doing who's on first with LNG and poo. Let's go to the next story, Michael, before I get myself airsick. Russia readies billions of domestic fleet build out. This I found very interesting is that when you take a look at what Russia, right now there's about 1,400 tankers in the dark fleet. This article is talking about Russia's building up their shipyards, and they want to build up 1,000 scenario foresees 1,637 vessels will be built in Russia by 2036, of which 713 in the next 5 years. That is where the United States needs to get in our shipbuilding. That's why I ran this story, because it is important to understand what Russia's doing. And a good chunk of them are going to be ice carriers. That means that they're going to be really building up that Arctic bridge to Asia.
Yep.
And that, if you understand what's going on, is that he is making sure his supply lines to Asia can go year round. They have 6 nuclear powered icebreakers. And so when you combine those with the capability of these ice cargo ships, tankers, and everything else, Russia's going to be a powerhouse.
No, and it's really part of their long-term strategy, which basically goes all the way to 2050, which is sort of their version of the Belt and Road Initiative that China's doing, which is they anticipate having a fleet of about 2,600 of these vessels to basically, again, become a global energy power. Russia rightfully understands that energy is security, and security has a lot to do with energy. And they've done a good job of doing this. We also see that their first deputy prime minister, Denis Markova, he says that, I love how this article says, he says that the scheme includes large-scale modernization, efforts to eliminate shortage of shipbuilding capacity, including establishing new shipyards and replacing foreign shipboard equipment with domestic alternatives, and developing ship repair centers. And there's a lot of money. This is $6.2 billion in federal funding that they're putting in there.
Yep. Well, they've got it, and you have to hand it to them that they are, again, Germany lost negative GDP in 2 years running, and then Russia, even with all the sanctions, had a 4.2% increase in GDP growth.
Yeah.
So pretty darn cool.
No, pretty darn crazy. But let's go ahead and jump over and quickly touch on finance, Stu. But before we do that, we've got to pay the bills. Thank you for checking us out here on the world's greatest website, .energynewsbeat.com. Stu and the team do a tremendous job making sure that website stays up to speed. Everything you need to know to be the tip of the spear when it comes to the energy and the oil and gas business. Go ahead and hit that description below. All the links to the timestamps, links to the articles. One of the best ways to support the show is check us out via Substack, theenergynewsbeat.substack.com. It's where Stu is posting a bunch of custom content only subscribers can get. And if you want to upgrade to a paid subscription, you get a couple extra little perks on top of that, including our historical library of articles, which is only available via Substack. That's theenergynewsbeat.substack.com. We'd also like to shout out sponsor of the show, Reese Energy Consulting. Our friends over there do an excellent job of keeping you up to speed and in the know when it comes to the midstream business. Guys, if you work for an upstream operator and you're not working with a marketing company, no, I'm not talking about tweets. I'm talking about oil and gas marketing. I'm talking about your first purchasers, your midstream contracts. As if you're not working with a company that's negotiating your contracts, I promise you, you're losing out on 50 cents per MCF, $1 per barrel. And that adds up over an entire year, could be hundreds, if not millions of dollars you're missing out on. Our friends at Reese Energy Consulting can help you out with that. You can also go check out their midstream offers. And guys, if our whole show was LNG today. If you are in the LNG space and you have questions, call them up, reeseenergyconsulting.com. Tell them that Energy News Beat sent you, and they will make sure to hook it up. And finally, guys, it is never too early to start thinking about your 2025 tax bill. If you need a little bit of a tax deduction, if you would like monthly distributions, and you like portfolio diversification, and most importantly, if you want to become Billy Bob Thornton from Landman, I promise you, investing in oil and gas is the way to do this. We have a great ebook written by one of our partners who basically breaks down the entire process on what it looks like to invest in the energy business, different segments, what it looks like, what to avoid, what to take care of. Go ahead and go to investinoil.energynewsbeat.com to download that ebook. It's a great resource. That's investinoil.energynewsbeat.com. Become Billy Bob Thornton from Landman. Stu, markets kind of ripped today. Up about 1 percentage points on the S&P 500, up about 1.7 percentage points on NASDAQ. We are closing in on pre-tariff levels. Now, there's a couple sides to that coin, which we'll dive into. So super interesting there. 2 and 10-year yields still above 4.02 percentage points for the 2-year and 4.4 percentage points for the 10-year. That's up 0.2 and 0.5 percentage points, respectively. Dollar index dropped about 0.6 of a percentage point. We see Bitcoin basically at about $104,000, slightly below that right now. Crude oil up $1.80 today, or about 3 full percentage points, 63.78 as we record this about 1 o'clock here on the 13th. Natural gas down about 0.5 percentage point, $3.62. XOP, which is our E&P securities contract, up 3.5 percentage points to 127.64. Our OIA, which is our E&P, or which is our E&P service index, is actually up 1.3 percentage points, so slightly lagging. I mean, the real thing here, Stu, is we've got tariffs. This renegotiated or pausing of tariffs that's happening right now at the federal level is really what's driving this. And I want your opinion on where these tariffs, on what's happening right now, because really there's been a pause in the tariffs.
I think it did exactly what we needed it to do, and that was President Trump got China to sit up and listen. Everybody else is now hurrying to it. And by the way, if you haven't paid attention to the Saudi trip, the Saudi government is treating our president with respect, and it is not a fist bump. It is nice to have a respected trip to the Middle East, and hats off to President Trump, and hats off to the Saudi Arabian government for treating our president with respect and a lot of business, Michael. They're talking about bringing home a lot of signed contracts. I saw them sign a business deal between Saudi Arabia and the United States. Elon is there. I saw Elon's interview.
It was good.
Fantastic.
It was good.
I mean, America is back, and we don't have to have a stupid fist bump.
No, you're right, and I think you're right. I think in the short term, history didn't look too fondly upon the tariffs. I think over the 4-year presidential cycle, history is probably going to look a little bit better when it comes to these tariffs, because
of what President Trump was doing all along.
You were one of a few people, both on the right and the left. So, we love to criticize you when you're wrong. We'll give you a little pat on the back when you were right. So we appreciate that. The other thing, guys, that we saw was both Halliburton and Schlumberger earnings dropped. I think really why I want to touch on that is just mainly not to talk about what their earnings were in the first quarter, which weren't great, but really what they said's upcoming in the second quarter, which is where we are definitely going to have some lower oil prices. Let's start specifically with Baker Hughes, the number 3 of the big 3. They posted in Q1 a 27% drop in net profits to about $509 million. And their quote warning about second quarter was, quote, broader macro and trade policy uncertainty. Interesting. Schlumberger also went ahead and gave a warning of what's going to happen. They had a more modest decline of about 4%, but a 22% decline in net profits quarter over quarter. Their quote was, the industry may experience a potential shift of priorities driven by a change in the global economy, fluctuating commodity prices, and evolving tariffs, all of which could impact upstream oil and gas investment and in turn affect demand for our products and services. Halliburton, trying to see where there is. I've got the quote here, but really what their quote was, with oil prices falling out of the well-defined range that had persisted for the much of 2+ years, producers' budgets are encountering meaningful strain for the first time in several years. That was a quote from Raymond James, specifically talking about Halliburton. It's going to be very interesting to see where these go. I mean, they're forecasting, and I think what they're doing is they're setting themselves up to outperform Q2. I mean, at $63 oil where we sit right now, $60 oil. Yeah, rigs are going to get dropped. We've seen that on a week-over-week basis. But I think what they're doing is they're maybe being a little bit heavy-handed in how they're going about marketing. I talk about IR guy of the week. Let's overpromise, underdeliver a little bit. Or excuse me, underpromise, overdeliver. We don't want to overpromise and underdeliver, but we want to overscare you about how bad our earnings are going to be, and then let's overperform when we actually drop them. So I think that's mostly what's going on here. I think it's, again, going to be a choppy Q2, but I think it'll be interesting to see where prices go from here. What are we missing, Stu, before we let these folks get out of here?
Well, we see the oil prices up. WTI right now is at 63.85 at the time we're recording this, and Brent is 66 78. That goes to with RT's article on the crude truth.
Yep.
It's going to follow that mapping, and that's a pretty good one. We'll share out on the Energy News Beat as well, too.
No, absolutely. It's a great article, guys. We hope to see everybody there tonight at our Super Doug Happy Hour. We appreciate everybody who has signed up. I think it's going to be a great event, so we are going to have some fun doing that. But with that, guys, we're going to go ahead and let you get out of here, get back to work, finish up your day. We appreciate you checking out Energy News Beat and the world's best daily energy news podcast. For Stuart Turley, I'm Michael Tanner. We'll see you tomorrow, folks.